My name is Tasha, and I'm the owner of Sedona Center for Harmony and Enrichment. We are here in Sedona, Arizona, and we have a plethora of practitioners and friends who like to get together and talk about navigating challenge. So this is our third episode, and I'm sitting here with Wiedman, and I'm going to pass it off to her.
Hello, I'm Wendy Wiedman. I'm a vibrational healer here at the Sedona Center for Harmony and Enrichment, and I have a room here filled with sound lounges that are beds filled with speakers for a three-dimensional musical experience for your cells to balance your body. And I specialize in adventure recovery, mainly when people are out adventuring in Sedona and they need to revive or repair their muscles. I combine the sound healing with Tasha's polychromatic light healing, and we send people on their way so they can enjoy Sedona some more.
So I didn't mention that. I am a light therapy practitioner, and I also own Sedona Art Tours. So stop by and take a look at all the art.
Nice. We are Neha and Gary from Higher Dimensional Guidance and Healing, and we offer emotional and energy healing and spiritual guidance. Glad to be here today.
Happy to have you. Yep.
I'm Dani, and I've toyed with a few different names for what it is that I do. And most recently, I've landed on calling myself a feminine health consultant. I offer a few different modalities. I'm a certified peri-steam facilitator, which is also called pelvic steaming. I'm a budding herbalist, a former yoga teacher, and generally just very passionate about women's health.
Thank you. Welcome. So I wanted to just open the floor basically by just saying, what kind of challenges do we see out there? And let's start around Robin, kind of discussing how we assist in these challenges and also how we're taking care of it for ourselves.
Okay. You know, we're in a lot of planetary alignments and stellar configurations, namely that we haven't really been in since the Revolutionary War. So this is navigating new territory for a lot of us. Personally, there are times when both of us feel incredibly heavy, almost at times like we're underwater. So we're trying to navigate that as best as we can right now. And with the understanding that it's not us and that we don't have to respond to that energy coming in. But the human side of us, the 3D side of us says, no, you have to deal with this. So my question is, how do you guys deal with these energies that are going through right now?
That's such a great question, Gary. I love that you're bringing up the astrological side of things, because I definitely experience that there will be days where I'll have these random feelings, heaviness, or, you know, I'll just have a random day where I'm very angry or moody or just kind of touchy. And I think for me, the first step is always like, pause and sink into my body. Really, for me, the number one thing that I can do to care for myself and to be able to serve other people effectively and show up in my life for everyone, my loved ones, my friends, is just to be grounded in my body, to be feeling what's really alive in my body and what feels like it's maybe coming from the exterior, and somehow having that clarity about like this, you know, this is an astrological phenomenon that's occurring, and sometimes hearing from other people even, oh, I'm feeling that too right now. And I can just go, okay, it's gonna pass. This isn't something that I really need to tease out with a lot of effort, but that I can as best as I can just try to let it pass, be with it, be gentle with myself. Yeah, and really the thing I always come back to is just upping my self-care as much as possible. And again, that really the primary step of that is being in my body. And I would say the second step is to remember to be gentle.
Yeah,
because
indeed.
it's a weird time. It's a weird time that we're going through. Unprecedented.
Yes.
Right. Thank you for that, Dani.
I like what you're saying about grounding, because with these extra different frequencies coming onto the earth, through the earth, depending on where we are on this little spaceship Earth in the galaxy. I have been going out every single morning, hiking somewhere just to be on the rocks, and that is how I start my day. And I very consciously do a specific meditation to ground, and not only to ground my vessel to the earth, but to ground the energies that are coming onto the earth for myself and for everybody on the planet, so that it's maybe a little bit easier for people to integrate. I tend to find the people resisting it, the people that are having a trickier time with it. But yeah, definitely grounding for sure. And my feeling, the effects that I feel from the energy coming in has more to do with the technology that I'm trying to work with versus anything in my body happening. And that might be because I have the modalities available to me to counteract that. I just hop on the sound lounges, pick a couple different frequency tracks to balance out whatever I seem to be called to at that time, and then just also very consciously being in nature. So the computer challenges, like we experienced a few moments ago, have been heightening. And you just got to step away, or look at it from a different angle, or those are how the frequencies have been showing up in my world.
And they are small challenges that if you can make them little humps instead of some kind of a big hill, it's much better for you. And a lot of people are struggling, I think, too, for creating mountains out of molehills, if you will. And I think I could probably speak to Gary and Neha a little bit about generational. I know you guys are probably younger than I am, but we're a little older than these two. And we were taught, honestly, this is how I grew up anyway, we were taught maybe in subtle ways that the word power was kind of, you don't really use the word power because it's such a powerful word. And you also, navigating challenges, you're constantly looking for outside, and you're not really doing the self-care because then you're selfish. And so I think a big challenge these days is for a lot of people to get past that hump. What does that mean? If I take time for me, am I being selfish? And so that's been a really big one in my world. I'm noticing people in my generation who are really having a difficult time getting past that hump of self-care, meaning truly, if I don't take care of me, I have nothing left to give out there, and it's not selfish. So that's been a big one I've noticed.
Yeah, indeed.
So many of us have, this is happening globally, but also on a personal level, that anything that we haven't healed yet emotionally is coming up for healing. And so there's a lot of confusion and a lot of, as far as the outer world goes anyway, and that is incredibly confusing. Yes. But as Gary said, we cannot take it on. And that really does go back to the serenity prayer. If I can't change it, acceptance, a total willingness to have it all be the way it is the best way through, because any resistance will just create more blocks. But as far as the personal, so many of us have memories come up, have traumas come up, have things come up that we thought we were done with 20 years ago or whatever. Things that, some of them, things that have never actually really been dealt with, childhood things. And all of a sudden, here it all is. And what we hear from people quite a bit is a loss of reference right now. There is such an increase of light coming onto this planet at this time. And so many of us are being activated too. We've come here as light bringers, as light bearers, way showers at this time. And we're being activated all of a sudden. Our rather comfortable spiritual life is kind of falling by the wayside. And changes are happening that we may or may not have a reference for, but we came for this, and there is an activation factor where this is not of the 3D. And so it helps to share with others who are going through this as well, where our awakening is being sped up, our healing is happening, we're being activated, and for whatever we signed up for, whatever we contracted for. And there's just so much confusion around the not knowing and just going, oh my God, what is happening to me? What's going on? My head, my crown chakra feels like it's opening. My head barely fits through the door. My stomach's in a knot, whatever it may be. You talked about the grounding. So, so important.
Yeah. You know, the biggest, something that is not new to how we speak, but incredibly necessary, is allowance. We have to allow this stuff to happen. You know, suffering and pain comes out of resistance to what is. When you resist what is, number one, you're pulling yourself out of the moment, and you're making yourself not present and available. So just allow things to be. You don't have to become your emotions. Yes, you have to sit within them, as Dani had said. You have to, you cannot deny the emotional self through anything. So just allow whatever you're going through, allow it to happen. Everything is meant to be as it is meant to be. So there's purpose to this. The experience itself is neither good nor bad, but it is our perception that gives it the definition of good or bad. So change your perception. Stop looking at it through the eyes of survival or victim mentality, and stop asking, why is this happening? Learn to see the opportunity to learn, grow, and heal from anything that comes our way. And that will ensure our survival. And at that point, we can step into thriving mode.
I love the use of the word allowance, because as the two of you were speaking, I was taking some notes of things I wanted to contribute. And the word that came to me was receptivity, which I feel like means very much the same thing. You know, there's this theme right now, I think, of being receptive to what comes and being receptive to learning more about your experience, because this is such an unprecedented time and new things are being activated, or old stuff is being brought up that we haven't looked at, you know, so remaining receptive both to that and also to growing through that. And I want to speak to something that Wendy and Tasha mentioned when they were talking, which had to do with like interior and exterior. Wendy, you were talking about how you like to go for a walk and you ground, and you also have these tools that you use, these technology tools, these sound beds. And I think, you know, I can't speak for anyone else, of course, but sometimes for me, I'll get caught up in this monologue of like, well, I should have everything I need within me, and I have to be autonomous and sovereign. And it's this weird process of labeling and this weird pressure that I can put on myself. And I have met other people that do this, so I know I'm not alone. But I think being willing to reach out for help when you need it, to use certain modalities or another person who you respect, who maybe has some insight that they can offer you. And at the same time, that's always a balance, you know, and when you're working with anyone, remaining within your power and having your discernment of what feels true to me, and that receptivity of just remaining open to what is being shared and what comes up, and being willing to reflect on that. I think those are all really important things.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of good words in there. Thank you.
Yes.
I was just thinking in regards to how you were saying you have this feeling that all of it should be inside of you, and we can heal ourselves from just the power that we have inside of us, which on this super ideal, that's absolutely true. And we also live here. We're not in some area that has pristine air and, you know, no EMF pollution. There's things that are affecting our fields every day that might need a little extra something, whatever you're led to, quite honestly, to get you revved up to balance out whatever you need to be balancing out. And I have the fun tools. Do I use them all? Do I remember to use them all the time? No. I'm like, oh, how come I haven't been doing the lights? Oh, that could have helped, you know, weeks ago. So it's when people have that awareness, or for example, I can offer people sessions all day long, and if they aren't ready for it, I understand that it could help them out, but if they're not at that place, they're going to turn it down, and maybe they'll take me up on it some other time, or when the pain, you know, when the right pain hits. That's always a game changer. But the tools inside or outside are there for when, I think, when our inner ears are turned to know when to accept that in a receptivity way. That's another receptivity scenario. Oh, so-and-so offered this. I haven't been taking them up on it. Oh, I wonder if that offer's still available. So it is still, again, like a receptivity balance, and receptivity in terms of what is my inner self telling me I need, and where can I find it? Usually I run into it synchronistically.
Yes.
That's how it works best for me.
Totally.
Which is a conversation about awareness. Just saying, if anybody wants to pick that up.
Awareness. Wow, it's the beginning of it all.
Mm.
Everything begins with awareness.
There you go.
You know, especially the awareness of the self. How are you going to know what you're going through if you're not aware of it? You know, unfortunately, there are those going through this life blindly, and they have no awareness of life or anything else. And those of us on an awakening journey, or even a spiritual journey, we're used to that awareness. And as you said, we're not able to give someone a message they're not able to receive or ready to receive. But don't think that planting a seed isn't incredibly important. You know, plant that seed, you know, and as you had said, when they're ready, then they will take that up. But it's not going to happen until we're ready. You know, I just got done writing about that in the book. And yeah, change comes when we're ready, and not until.
Yeah, I mean, picking up that thread of awareness, self-awareness. I recently started teaching dance classes because that's my background from way back when. And someone asked me to teach a dance class, so I've been doing that. And as I was preparing, I was going back through some old notebooks where I had written down some ideas about movement practice and embodiment practices. And I stumbled across this section that was called Step Into Yourself. And it was this whole, it was so lengthy, but it was amazing. I was like, wow, I was really tapping into something in this time in my life. And it was sort of a mantra that I would say to myself, because often what I notice, and this is something that I observed through many years of teaching yoga, it's difficult for someone to be fully aware of themselves when they are not even feeling their entire physical form. And of course, it's not all about the physical form at the end of the day, but I feel like this is a really important foundational piece. And so sometimes I would just say this, it's like a little mantra to myself, like step into yourself, especially when I'd find myself like I'm brushing my teeth and I'm sort of standing like on one foot awkwardly, or I'm like, you know, sort of slouched over in a funny position, like step into yourself. What does that do to your posture? And what does that do to your awareness of your body? And then from that awareness, what are you feeling inside of that? And can you make space for all of that inside of yourself? And it comes back to receptivity again.
Indeed. Indeed.
Yeah, beautiful. That's something that I certainly have learned is to sit within my emotions and to really still down, to just slow down. And it's something that is incredibly new to so many people. We've been all so busy and just outwardly oriented and doing all these things. And it's really during every day and not just once to just go, okay, where am I? And this is reiterating what you guys were all saying. How do I really feel? Where's my inner child at? How are we all doing in here? You know, where are the emotions at? Am I actually sad underneath it all and just going through the motions of life? I can stop. I can just really stop, even if I have just 15 minutes to myself. It's like, oh, okay, come here. The gentleness, the nurturing, and just really go, oh, what's going on? And just feel into it, because at the emotional level, we all are like children still. You know, our bodies have grown, and certainly our minds and our capabilities and all of that. But at an emotional level, to me, that is what self-nurturing is just that emotional availability with myself, especially as the outer world in French is going to pieces here. I spared you of the French, but just that being there for myself and going, you know what, I just read the news and this just upset me so much. I feel sad. And to allow myself that crying and to just go, okay, we can do everything else later. This has to be taken care of now, because otherwise the rest of my day is going to be off. If I stuff the emotions down, I understand there are some situations where it's like, okay, later, I'll deal with this later. But we have to come back to it, because otherwise it just accumulates and we get further and further from ourselves and from our authenticity. And so that's where this awareness of self, that is such an important component to me, to just be in touch with my emotions and express them if I need to. If it's like, oh, I wanted to say something, I didn't get to saying it. Well, now I can still call or text that person and say, hey, I meant to say this, to just take care of myself. Or, oh, I actually had a boundary there. I let it be overstepped. Now I feel all yucky. And what do? Okay, I still need to stand up for myself. I need to still say something. But these things come out in feeling into the emotions. It's like, what's the cause of me feeling all small or just weird, not liking myself? I notice this is something that's happening with us so much, is that we go through our day and we don't actually like ourselves. Something's happened and we've kind of turned against ourselves. And so it's this pause, this stopping and just going, okay, where's everything at? That's self-awareness. And then just being there, because in a way it's like with a child, they fall on their knee, it hurts. And if you're actually there for them for a moment and say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you're hurting. Come here, do you want a hug? Okay. After a few minutes, they're going to be okay. And they'll run and do whatever they were going to do anyway. And it's not that different with us, where, okay, now I've had that moment with myself, I feel a lot lighter. And the clarity of what we need to do in the next moment comes from that as well.
This is so beautiful, this emotional piece that you're speaking about. And I love, as you're speaking about it, there's such tenderness in your voice that comes across so potently. And I feel like it's very much part of the message that you're sharing. And something I want to acknowledge for me is that, yeah, that emotional process, it can be so tumultuous at times, and it can be so sweet at times, and so loving and so full of care. And sometimes it's really messy. And it's so easy because obviously none of us are in a very heightened emotional state right now as we're having this conversation. So it's one thing to speak about it. And then in the moment where you're having it, it doesn't feel this good the way we're talking about it. Sometimes it feels horrible. Sometimes it feels like I'm such a complete mess. Sometimes it feels like I suck at this and I'm struggling to hold space for myself and to be present through this. And it can feel challenging. And there are times where it can feel so smooth and like it just unfolds when you're in the flow of it. So I just want to acknowledge that it can look so many different ways for me, and, you know, other people have shared this experience with me too. One thing that you mentioned, you spoke briefly about like, oh, I saw this thing on the news and I feel sad. And I think that's an experience that many of us are having. And so something that really helps me in that regard is to constantly remind myself to look around at my world, at what I experience on a day-to-day basis, the people that I interact with in the community, and just say, what is real? And hold on to that. Because I think things can get so crazy and we can get so confused and we can think that things can be really bad. And sometimes just looking around and seeing the beauty in day-to-day life and seeing that the people in your community care about each other, it can be such a comfort. And I think too, just seeing the reality of what's occurring in front of you, it helps to not get off into these weird like conspiracy theories that are a little outlandish, and just stay grounded in the moment and in that awareness of self, you know. And that's a practice for sure, because, you know, we're all on social media all the time. We're exposed to so much information, bombarded even on a daily basis. And so it can take real mindfulness, even like self-discipline, to ask yourself that question of what's real and to come back to that time and time again. But I find it vital in these times.
Yeah.
We don't have to absorb the energy just because it's there. You know, you can reject any energy that comes at you. Like you said, it's self-discipline. You know, just because all your friends are jumping off the bridge doesn't mean you have to too, you know. Hi guys, sorry, not today. So yeah, just push it away. Just push it away. No, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to allow this to affect me anymore. I'm not going to allow it to bring me down. So like you say, you revert back to the self. What's important, what's real, what's truth. And as you say, with so many lies and conspiracy theories, what is real? Well, trust. Trust. Your spirit knows truth. It knows what's real. Trust your spirit.
Nicely said all the way around. Thank you. No, really, that was really beautiful. Thank you.
Two things can't come to mind. One in regard to how you were saying to check in with your emotions and give yourself time to assess them as they come up. I think this some sort of paradigm shift has to happen for people to know that it's okay to be given permission to do that. There's a very high percentage of people that are just go, 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 go. Oh, I can't take, oh, you have a 1 hour break in your workplace coming to you, but you work through your lunch. That's, you can take it. No, I can't take lunch. No, that's impossible. I would have so much more to do. But, so there's that ingrainedness of maybe whatever people have trained themselves to think, if I work 82 hours a week, then I will be recognized and have these rewards and can't take a lunch because self-care is at the bottom. Where in reality, some realities, my reality, I think other countries' reality, they realize the value of stepping away from things so that you can come back to yourself and assess whatever is going on so that you can integrate that information. Then sometimes you come back and all the more creative to jump back into whatever project you were on in the first place. So this whole people being able to feel like they have permission to take that time, because it is really important to check in with yourself on those levels throughout the day. Not, I mean, there's things that come up where, like you were saying, you can't necessarily do it at the moment, and I'm like, oh, I'll attend to that later, but then you have to remember to attend to it later, otherwise it'll just build.
Do you feel though that shift is happening? Because I do. I think it's happening, but I think it's not as fast as I would prefer, actually, but I'm noticing people in my own world who would have never taken time for themselves, actually breathing now, joining even classes here that I would have never seen this person come to anything like that. Someone who would come to me and say, well, I've never understood meditation, but I took the class, and so now I see what you're saying. And even if I can only find 5 minutes for myself in the morning, it's something that I feel I need to do for myself. And maybe that person in a couple of weeks will have 10 minutes, and then maybe they'll find more time. But I kind of feel like it's slowly, the key is turning in the lock. It's happening. People are starting to go, oh, okay, this is good. This is something that's necessary. I feel like at my age, I feel like it's been at least 30 years of listening to myself speak about things like this, but also hearing all of this out there all the time. Take care for yourself, fill your love tank. See if I can come up with all the different ones, all the different ones that have been in the past. If you don't fill your love tank, you have nothing left for other people, et cetera, et cetera. That was back in my 20s and 30s. And so I feel like it's slowly happening. And yet, in the grand scheme of things right now, a lot more people are starting to do that and take notice and pay attention and join the classes and be a part of it. So it's happening. It's just,
I think bigger corporations that sort of understand that, they're making meditation rooms for their employees. They're incorporating different programs for them to have access to.
Sure.
And maybe that's because maybe the generation age that they employ have been like, I'm not coming to work unless I can be the best I can for you, and how about you support me and I'll support you. There's this kind of shift in regards to work ethic. People are really, really willing to work hard, but they want to be taken care of also. So it's kind of this, it is a shift. I don't know if people outside of that necessarily feel like they can give themselves permission to do that, or if that extends to outside the workplace. Maybe if you're working in a place that has that sort of culture, you tend to do that in your own life if somebody puts an importance on it.
Well, I'm trying to teach my 16-year-old right now too. In my 20s, well, in my teens actually, when I first started working in the work world, I entered a job situation knowing that I could get that job, and I would let them know how I want it to look. And that was, speaking of unprecedented, that was unprecedented in the time. People didn't do that. If you wanted a job, you better go in begging for that job. And I would go in and say, Thanksgiving's big for me, for my family, so I'll be heading off to do that. So I'll need a week, and then I'm gonna need this in March, and I won't be here for this, and I don't like weekends and whatever, but here, I'd like to do this job. And I always got the job that I wanted. I'm trying to teach my 16-year-old. That's okay to do. That it's good for you to walk in knowing who you are first and
Indeed.
say what it is that you want in a respectful way, obviously. It has to go both ways.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
It's
I
changing.
think that probably, Tasha, what you're describing feels a little edgy and uncomfortable to some people.
Yeah.
But I think one of the beautiful things that I'm seeing right now is that many people are beginning to question a lot more than they have in the past. Question the mainstream narrative, question, the ideals that we've been conditioned with and what we're meant to do in our lives. So I do think that that's contributing to, as you're saying, this key slowly turning and people starting to get curious about, oh, well, Western medicine hasn't really worked for me, so maybe I'll try something else. And I think there's beauty in that. I also just want to add, Wendy, you were talking about people feeling like they have permission or not. And while as a practitioner, I'm not a huge fan of like a hierarchy existing between me and my clients, like I'm the authority and you are not. one way that you can use that authority card kind of positively is to be like, I'm the authority, you have permission to rest. You have permission to take care of yourself. And I am an expert about this, and I am saying it's crucial for your health. Please take it seriously. So that's one way where I will use my authority as a practitioner. Other than that, I'm like, follow your intuition. You know yourself way better than I do, you know.
You know, everything we've spoken about here, this is the awakening of the collective consciousness, the stream of consciousness. And it is, in fact, very much along the 100 monkey theory that as one learns, they all learn. You know, we're all connected by this thread in the etheric realm. And yeah, eventually there's going to be that event horizon where there's enough of us and everybody else has no choice but to be like this. Okay? This is the awakening of humanity as is necessary for the ascension of Mother Earth. You know, Wendy, you made a very, very good point. Giving yourself permission. A lot of times, I'm not going to say that either. The body, the cellular self, doesn't know any better until we give it permission. They're like, oh, you mean I can do that? Yeah, and you will, because you should. So yeah, give yourself permission to do these little things because it adds up. And when we do enough of these little things, like again, we reach that event horizon and the rest of the cellular self just automatically comes on board. And it's like, wow, okay. So this is just another step on my awakening evolutionary process. This is awesome. Let's do it even more, which everything compounds and it's a snowball effect. And once you get on that train track and you're a runaway train, man, look out. Nobody's stopping you.
I love this piece of momentum that you're mentioning, momentum building until you become a runaway train. And I feel like I'll just share that personally, something I've struggled with since the beginning of this pandemic is keeping momentum and finding, you know, like getting discouraged and sort of getting stagnant or complacent, and finding that the antidote to that is following my joy and things that I am really passionate about, and continuing to study, continuing to connect, and just building up that positive momentum, even if it's something, you know, whatever it is, whatever the joy is in any aspect of my life, but just feeling the necessity of that, and to keep it rolling in some small way. Not that we can't stop, you know, it's so important to slow down. It's so important to stop. But to keep that feeling of aliveness within yourself, to realize that you're alive every day, and to realize that, like, it sounds so trite to say it's such a gift and life is precious, but seriously, like, life is so precious and it is such a gift. And to do the things that remind you of that and not take it for granted.
I think this is such a time too where we cannot judge what's happening in the outer world. We have a tendency to go, oh, this is so terrible what's happening. But underneath all the chaos, there are so many people who, as human beings, I'm interrupting myself here, as human beings, we are incredibly comfort and safety oriented. And a lot of times, the longer we have done something, the more difficult it is for us to go a different direction, to actually do what we want. And so a lot of relationships are breaking down right now. A lot of job situations are breaking down, a lot of housing situations. And there's actually a lot of good in that, because people are taken out of the situations that they may have hated for the past 12 years, but didn't have the courage or the whatever it is they needed, from financial means to whatever else, to make a certain step and now being forced to take it, there's a lot of freedom unraveling, and there's a lot of, oh my God, I just went through the motions of life for the last 2 decades, and here I am all of a sudden. I've been talking to some people who live in Oregon and who were affected by the fires, and I have some clients for my web business as well from there, and everybody is stirred up, but I see so much beauty coming out of that, not only in a community way and all of that, and to see the depth of the preciousness of humanity, but also on an individual journey where all of a sudden these chains have been cut loose, and there is, you know, goes back to Janis Joplin, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. There's truth in that, and the rediscovering of the self, and the not having a reference, not being cemented into what we've done just the same way, the exact same way for so long, that it doesn't even occur to us there may be a different way to live a Tuesday. You know, it's always been, we do that, and there's such beauty in it, and the having to dig deeper into our strength, our power, our compassion, all of that. I feel like we're in the middle of it. It's sort of like a bread that's in the oven. If you open it now, it's just goo, you know? There's nothing pretty about it. But in the end, despite all of the chaos, all of the hardship, and all of the hurt that will come out of all of this, there's also such growth, such evolution, awareness, awakening, all of that coming out, that we can't judge other people's journeys and what it took for them to get shaken loose, and to find that freedom, and to just not need a brand new $40,000 SUV to drive down the road, but maybe just drive in a beater, have the windows down, and turn on Led Zeppelin, you know, and just find that again, where it's like, oh my God, I'm breathing. I'm finally breathing again. I haven't taken a real deep breath in decades. So
What's important? What's real?
What's real? Exactly.
Thank you so much for all of that, because I really feel that if we can help people, assist, somehow put it out there, always be ready to use those words. I'm trying to encompass all of it. To let them know that it's okay, that there is so much beauty. I loved when you said that. So much beauty in this chaos. And it is chaotic. And I said it in the last navigating challenge. We sometimes wake up and don't know which side of the fence to be on, because they're both scary, you know, they're both something. Everybody, and the people who get caught in fear, it would just be lovely for them to know it's okay. We're all going through. Let's just keep going through and see the beauty that's in all this chaos. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, embrace your vulnerability. You have no growth until you step out of that comfort zone. Okay? So step out of that comfort zone. Give yourself permission, like you had said. Step out of it and watch your own growth take place. I don't care how uncomfortable it is, embrace it.
I feel that there's a lot to learn from just trying different things, and maybe you're learning because you've tried things and you're like, oh, that didn't work. Oh, that didn't work either. Oh, nope, that didn't work either. But eventually you'll learn a lot along the way, but at least the momentum is going in some sort of direction or project, or whatever the joy was at the moment that obviously made you jump on that spark to begin with, whether it is something that a big rug that was just pulled out from underneath you, or because you were sparked from joy. Either way, it's I've been feeling this last 2 weeks, for very specifically some projects that I've been working on, that I was trying what I knew to work in the past, and it didn't work this time. And then some other projects that I had never tried before, but and it had to do with it was an electrical project. I should have probably read up on that. But along the way, you know, you find out what blows things up and what doesn't. But at least in a forward momentum, it was joyous at the moment. I didn't care. I was like, I am learning. Oh, I am learning what not to do. But in the end, I now have this beautiful thing, and I had to learn the lessons the way that I did. You know, and there's a lot of, I feel sometimes, judgments on how people choose to learn things, especially if you've gone through it and you feel you can provide insight, but they might have to go through it the way that they're really going to remember the process and the steps. And then it's just more about not necessarily the end game of what you ended up doing, but what was the path? What does each individual person learn along that path that they can choose to share or not? Like you were saying, choose to plant the seed or not. Just here, I'll offer, this is what happened when I tried it. Take it or leave it, pull from whatever info you want and apply it however you want.
Yeah. You know what an incredible revelation has been for me is not all spirits have come to earth to heal, and to have to just let that be, that we're not here to save people and we're not here to change them. Everyone has come at the spirit level for a very specific purpose. And as a healer, this was mind-boggling to me that not everyone is here to heal. There are people who just come to have horrific experiences, and it is not my place to soften their fall, to take their consequences, to, you know, act out my lovely measure of codependence that I certainly can and have in here, but to just let people be. And what you were saying too, let them learn the way that it's not our place, it's not our responsibility. And that's just such an important thing for me to know, that they're going to have to tell me, they're going to have to show me where they want help, and they're going to have to be in charge of it. I'm going to do what I can to support that. But as such, we're not the healers. The individual is always the healer of their own everything that needs healing. And they know how to do it. And we hold space, we let them cry on our shoulder, or maybe right now 6 foot away, but you know, the whole still same idea. But that it's not for us to take on somebody else's stuff. And I think this is so important with the time that we're heading into as well, that people will come to us that have just been ripped open, and we can help them, we can be there for them. But it is never for us to take it on what they're going through, or to think that we know which way they must go with it, because their spirit knows. And Gary has this wonderful practice of just talking with clients' spirit and letting them tell us, letting them tell him what the client actually needs, what they want out of that session. And that's just so much better than my assumptions that I could come up with, you know. And so that's, as we're heading deeper into chaos, and some people will come to us incredibly bruised and you know, in a way ripped open, that we have to allow their journey and their time to heal, all of that it is theirs, not ours. Because otherwise you got 50 people like that coming to you. That goes back to what you said, Tatia, the self-care. Otherwise you're not able to be there anymore for them. So
yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I wish I had someone like you or you back in my 20s tell me that, all of that.
yes.
Think back, right? When we were all back there trying to force everybody to see their light, forcing, you know, trying to put that out there, because everyone needs to heal, right? So yeah, thank you for saying that. It was very beautifully said.
Yeah. Thank you.
It should be every senior high school's class.
No kidding.
Yes, no
That would be
kidding.
beautiful.
Little life hacks here. Yeah.
Right. You know, teach them how to write checks, teach them how to manage their finances, and teach them that not everyone is here to heal. I love that. I think that would make a lot of sense, actually.
I was thinking that they might be teachers by example.
Right.
They're not here to heal, but people in their fields and the people that they interact with will learn whatever they are going to learn from observing that or being around that.
Mhm.
But if that energy wasn't ever present, then those other people couldn't learn whatever they came to learn.
Absolutely.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You used an incredibly great word there, Wendy. Observer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You know, when we become the observer, life is so much different. It takes us out of judgment. You know, we can experience truth as it's meant to be. And you know, Neha had mentioned that yes, I do speak with all of my clients' spirits, but I'm also observing the 3D self. Okay, as opposed to what the spirit says. And it's like, I always ask them if there's anything you came here in specific. And it's very rarely ever what their spirit says they need. It's like, okay, but we're going to work on this today because your spirit says so. Be the observer. When you step outside of yourself, you get to see your own response and your own reaction. I don't know, and I'm writing this in the book right now. I don't know how many times I've looked back on an experience or a memory as it's come back to me in our spiral journey and looked at it as the observer and went, wow, boy, did I screw that up. It wasn't them, it was me. Okay, so call their spirit in, ask for forgiveness, apologize, and make everything right again. Being the observer, you see truth as it is, not as your perception tells you it is, which usually comes from the wounded ego.
It's such an interesting paradox in a way, sometimes working with clients. And as you were saying, sometimes they'll express, I have this very specific goal or need or desire for our time together. And I think one of the most powerful things that we can do as practitioners is perhaps help them to access a more intuitive level or just something kind of under the surface, really tapping into what's actually there on that observer level, you know. Yeah, that's something that I try to do with clients, is help them have a dialogue with their womb, you know. And sometimes I'll say, you know, you don't have to share, but you're welcome to share anything that came up during that. And they'll say something like, oh, this sounds really like weird and irrational, but this is what I heard. And it's not what they think they need. It's something totally different, you know. I'm going to mute because my dogs are howling in the background. Sorry. Anyway, my point is that there's such richness in the individual journey, and that there's so many layers to it. There's, you know, this conscious, what we think, and then there's like emotions, there's energy, there's the spiritual aspect, there's the ancestral aspect, the genetic aspect, there's all of these things. There's the observer, and there's the soul contract. So yeah, acknowledging all of that, I think, is so crucial. And as I forget who said it, but not making assumptions, not jumping to a conclusion beforehand, before you have the willingness to try and see what that experience is really about for you, you know?
Yes.
Yes.
I totally appreciate your insight. Thank you. And your perception. Thank you so much.
And my dog's howling.
I think that had to do with the sirens, don't you? I muted too because the sirens were so loud.
I was a phrase from a retreat that I was involved in a year or two ago goes through my head in terms of the word judgment. The minute judgment of something happens in your mind, your energy drops.
Mm-hmm.
It's an energy drain in a direction that has no consequence whatever your judgment is on that. It's just this instant drain. So when I'm around people that are judgy, I like to remind them of that.
That's what it is when I read the news. Okay, thank you.
Like, consider that maybe your energy is going a place it doesn't need to. Yeah, I never really thought about it as an energy thing, but years ago, I was told that in context of road rage. A couple would be driving and the husband would always, just be driving and somebody might cut him off and the wife would yell. And he's like, honey, they can't hear you. The only one that can hear you is me, and it's just stressing me out. Yeah, and she felt drained and he felt stressed, and it was you didn't need to. As like you're saying, as the observer, you're like, that person must have needed to get somewhere faster.
Right. Right.
That's kind of how I think about a lot of tourists around here. I'm like, have fun in the roundabout.
Yeah, really.
I'll slow down.
I won't honk
Right.
my horn.
Right.
Yes, you can go. It's not your turn, but okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's because nobody wants to hear car horns either. That's just I don't know, jarring, unnecessary. Unless it's an emergency. Yeah.
Right.
Bless your levity. Thank you. This has all been kind of serious. We appreciate the levity. Thank
Yes.
you.
Got a little stand-up comedian in there.
Way too much seriousness in the world right now, so thank you, Wendy. Yeah. So I think on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap up for today, but I would like to put this out there at least once a month. And so hopefully we can continue a conversation and see what we come up with next month. And I really, really appreciate all of you being here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been beautiful and it's been an honor. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
how wonderful. Thank you.
Totally.
all.
Very
Thank you
much.
so much. Thanks for the opportunity.
You bet.
Absolutely.
You guys have a wonderful rest of your day and weekend.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.